If you've been scrolling through endless lists of pre-built gaming rigs, comparing a handful of specs, and still feel stuck wondering whether any of them will actually fit your needs, this review is going to clear that up for you. I spent the last week setting up a couple of builds, digging through community forums, and watching how the same hardware behaves in a real-world gaming apartment. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the STORMCRAFT Phantom RTX 5080 isn't just another high-end box that looks impressive on paper. It's aimed at people who want to jump straight into 4K or higher refresh-rate 1440p gaming without spending weeks tweaking BIOS settings or hunting down compatible cooling solutions. If you're the type who prefers buying a complete system, plugging it in, and starting your favorite titles the same night, the Phantom is built around that convenience. On the flip side, if you enjoy the satisfaction of hand-picking each component and swapping parts for upgrades, you might feel confined by the pre-configured layout. The heart of this machine is AMD's Ryzen 7 9800X3D, an 8-core, 16-thread processor that leverages AMD's 3D V-Cache technology. In practice, that translates to noticeably smoother frame times in games that are sepia-bound, like Civilization VI or Starfield when you have dozens of units marching across the map. I ran a few sessions with the game open while streaming on Twitch, and the CPU never hiccuped. The stream stayed at a stable 60 frames per second while the game itself hovered around 80 frames per second on ultra settings. That's a solid indicator that the 9800X3D can handle both heavy multitasking and demanding AAA titles without the kind of throttling you sometimes see on older Ryzen models. Pairing the CPU with an RTX 5080 that pushes 16 GB of GDDR7 memory gives you a graphics card that, on paper, competes with the RTX 4090 tier. In day-to-day use, that means you can crank up ray tracing in Cyberpunk 2077 and still stay above 60 frames per second at 1440p with DLSS set to performance. When I toggled DLSS to ultra quality, the frames climbed even higher, showing that the card isn't just a brag-worthy component, it actually delivers the extra visual fidelity that modern titles advertise. For content creators, the RTX 5080 also handles GPU-accelerated rendering in Premiere Pro a lot faster than a mid-range card, shaving minutes off export times. Memory is a sweet spot at 32 GB of DDR56000. Most gamers never need more than 16 GB, but the extra capacity shines when you pile on mods, texture packs, or run virtual machines alongside your game. I loaded a heavily modded Skyrim with a 4 KB texture pack, and the system never stuttered. The DDR5 speed gives a slight edge in loading times, though you'll notice it most when opening large projects or loading sprawling open worlds. The 2 TB NVMe Gen 4 SSD is another practical win. Raw game installations that used to take 8-10 minutes on older SATA drives now finish in 2-3 minutes. Large titles like Microsoft Flight Simulator download quickly, and the extra space means you can keep several big games installed without constantly juggling storage. Cooling is where the Phantom shows its most visible trade-off. The case houses a 360mm AIO Liquid Cooler that keeps the CPU well under 70 C under full load. That's great for maintaining boost clocks, but the radiator sits at the top of the case, forcing the airflow to be a bit more forward-focused. In a small bedroom setup, I noticed the top of the case feeling warm after several hours of a marathon gaming session. It's not a deal-breaker, but if your room lacks good ventilation, you might want to add a small desk fan or ensure the case sits on a surface that allows heat to dissipate. Power comes from an 850W B850 chipset PSU, which is more than enough for the current components. The extra headroom is mainly future-proofing. You could swap the RTX 5080 for a next-gen GPU without worrying about a power upgrade. The PSU is modular, so cable management is reasonable, though you'll still have a cluster of cables behind the motherboard that could be tidied up if you're particular about aesthetics. Now, who should actually buy this machine? If you're a gamer who wants to start at 1440p high refresh or jump into 4K without dropping frames, and you're okay with paying a premium for a ready-to-play system, the Phantom delivers. It also fits content creators who need solid GPU acceleration and fast storage for video editing. The included RGB keyboard and mouse are a nice touch if you enjoy a coordinated look on your desk, but they're not the main draw. That's the performance. Who should skip it? First, the budget-conscious shopper. Even though the Phantom's price point is lower than a fully custom build with comparable parts, it's still positioned in the higher-end market. If you're comfortable building your own PC, you can probably shave a few $100s and still get a similar performance envelope. Second, the minimalist who prefers a silent, low-profile tower. The AIO cooler makes some audible pump noise, and the case's airflow isn't the quietest in the room. Lastly, anyone who plans to upgrade components frequently might feel